Preston, any more questions for Deanall?
I gave him too much information. If the government intends to put in say, 20, $30 billion in the economy, primarily in reconstruction efforts, then what companies more than likely will benefit directly or indirectly from those funds?
Hi, guys. My name's Dr. Thaon Simms, and welcome back to the Limitless podcast. Joining us, as always, is your co host, Dr. Matthew Preston. Hail up the people, and Matthew.
Hey, guys, what's good?
And today we have a very special guest. You can see right on the screen, Mr. Deanall Barnes. Welcome to the Limitless podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and good afternoon to all, or good evening to all your podcasters. And let me encourage them to tell their friends about your program and continue to listen in.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. So, I mean, for those who don't know, Deanall, he is the CEO of Atlantic Hardware and Plumbing Company Limited. Atlantic actually listed last year, and he is one of the key architects of its recent transformation. Right? He has a huge background. I guess he'll go into some of the things, but what I've been seeing is he has a very diverse background, I should say, in finance, manufacturing and construction, and also law. I realize you practice law as well.
To the best of my knowledge, I graduated from Norman Manley Law School a couple of years ago, and I'm paying more than the average graduate as relates to legal fees. So I have a little years in the legal
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, Denal, we're really excited to have you on. I see you have a lot of experience. I mean, before the podcast, you called yourself a young-ish man, but I see that you've spent quite a bit of time within the whole manufacturing, or construction, I should say, industry. One and the same, because you're at ARC manufacturing for about 10 years
No,
or over 10 years.
yeah, man, it's a little more than that. I
Wow.
started out, my first managerial sojourn was actually at ARC, was when I was younger. I don't want to say when I was young, because there's still evidence within me
That is it.
believe that I'm young. But yeah, and I started out as a manager. I rose through the ranks to become the president and CEO, and then thereafter ventured into law and here at Atlantic.
All right.
What made you take those steps though? Because that, to me, you're going from an amazing role at one of the biggest companies in Jamaica, and then you went into law, and now talk to us. Like, what was the thought process? Or, why would you take those steps?
Well, first and foremost, I completed my second degree by about 27 years old. I think I started at ARC at 28 as manager research and strategy. And clearly, I would have had some experience in research, but strategy, I knew nothing. I knew very little about the construction industry. Yes, I could identify cement, perhaps lumber, I could identify, but I was not intimate with it. So over time, I got on the ground and start learning from the security guard straight up to the CEO. So within a year and a half, I was promoted to assistant vice president, and then I took on was given the procurement portfolio at ARC. And by having the procurement portfolio, I had the opportunity to buy everything for the company all over the world, different planets. So I've had the privilege of perhaps traveling to about close to 40 countries, having different appreciation of business, of culture. And I think that propelled me with the knowledge that I have in finance with up the ranks. But whilst there, perhaps I was vice president by then or senior vice president. I wanted to do another master's, so I applied to the University of Manchester, and I was about to start the MBA there at University of Manchester. And I said, you know what? Nah, I don't want another master's. I'm gonna do this law thing. Applied to the University of London, and as they would say, the rest is history. So I'm not one of those persons who granny dreams that them grandson are gonna be lawyer, or I got or had any insatiable appetite for the law. Is, if as people say, just happened. But also when I examine it, when I start getting into it, I realize it's a nice little hobby, so to speak, and also it provided me with an opportunity. If you're laid off, if you're made redundant, if you're fired, there is a source of income. So I realized that actually law provided a significant avenue to generate more resources, more personal resources, but it also provided me with an insurance. If a corporate ladder don't work out for you, then okay, fine, I'll go the route of law. So for my trajectory in the legal profession is a little bit different from the average person. So that's why I ended up in law. But otherwise from that though, the moving from ARC, so to speak, to law, then to Atlantic, purely after you reach a certain level in an organization, unless there's some degree of equity, then persons like myself believe that there is no equity.
Mm-hmm.
And 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 naturally at that point in time you wanted to build something for yourself, or anything that you're engaged in, you want to ensure at the end of the day that you're not a stakeholder in its general term, but you're a shareholder. The avenues were not provided, and then I said, okay, fine. I built my thing, went out, started practicing, and then I met my chairman, the Honorable P.B. Scott, and I think about 3 or 4 years ago, before that, I was telling him that there was a company in the construction industrial building material distributive trade that was for sale. President, sorry, President of mine wanted to sell the company, so I, for a better term, reintroduced him to the project, and I said, well, then I'll fine. We can take a look at it. If it makes commercial sense, then we'll proceed. But the only issue is that you'd have to come and run it for us, because we know nothing about that. We buy
Yeah.
business. So I said to him, all right, no problem. I have a proviso. So I said, what's that? He said, well, any business that I'm running, I have to own it, or own piece of it. He said,
Mm-hmm.
that no problem with me as well. And as they would say, the rest is history. We negotiate purchase. I stepped down from my lofty, or not so lofty, position of being an attorney back to being president and CEO of a smaller business, but with the potential to grow. That
Wow.
Why?
it's more than a
Yeah.
mouth, but it's a synopsis of what transpired.
No, what
Yeah.
a story. I think you've laid it out quite well. You know, I mean, one of the key things that if you want to build wealth, if you look at it, almost everyone who has got wealthy is really through ownership. So they own some asset. So it's not just work. Like, yes, you can have a job, but then the extra money, the money that you make from it, you need to buy something that's worth value. So you need to own it. Like, just like if you had just kept working, and you didn't get that equity stake, it's like, what happens if, eventually when you leave the company, you have something that's paying you dividends, and then that could be, helping your children or your family and things like that. It's really
Well,
ownership.
well, exactly. I mean, I have looked at a few wills, and I have never seen on a will salary, because they cannot be uh,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
something I often say to when asked to speak at different forums, I said, listen, mate, you can't will your salary, so you need to find a way to start. Most persons believe that you can only make money with millions, but not realizing that it's $1,000,001 that actually makes a million. So you have to start somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow, those are bars. One thing that one thing that also resonated with me before Preston goes, and I know Preston has a question, but it's the reason you also went to law as almost like a thing to do, as fail safe, and the skills you would have probably gotten in just learning about the law and so on, and how um they can probably be translated in you as a CEO, and some of the understandings of a lot of the documents and so on. It's funny because I think Preston and I kind of feel the same way about doing medicine. Like, we like medicine. Well, I love medicine, but there's so many other things I love, and investing is probably my biggest love. And so, medicine is more of like a means to an end, or like a fail safe, or just in case. I see it as, I like helping people. It's more of like a passion project than it is me building wealth and, trying to build maybe like a family and all of those things. So yeah, I understand your move. I get it. And yeah, kudos to you. But I know
Thank
Preston's itching to ask probably a question. So I'll
you. Yeah.
let him jump in.
I was watching parts of an interview you did. I think it was on, was it all, not all angles, but
Profile.
Profile, yes.
Yes.
And a snippet of it, you speak about, I think, a story with your grandmother about how, I think she had a business and you were helping her run the business as a kid. Was
Well,
that the case?
I wish that was the case. You're quite kind, but it was a small business. What happened is that I was shipped to my grandmother in Senan, and she was a what you call really and truly proper small farmer. So I did not have the privilege of going to school on a Friday once the stock were at the mature stage and ready to sell. I had to go to St. Anne's Bay Market with her because but then I was quick with numbers, so I used to make the change. So it's not a small, well, it's not a business. So, well, it's business,
No,
but on
it's a
an
business.
extremely micro level. Interestingly enough, very interestingly enough, I ended up with a nickname whilst in college, vendor.
Mm.
I
I
ended up
rate
with a
that.
vendor whilst I was in college, so it was
Mhm.
more than fittingly appropriate, but perhaps appropriately fitting that I ended up with
Mhm.
that name. But yeah, man, yes, it was a tremendous experience. It taught you more than one things. I mean, you not only appreciate the fact that um, a lot of my college mates, I reminded them on several occasions that their mothers, their grandmothers, their fathers and grandfathers sold ruminants, sold a little pop choy or a little cabbage for them to be in college, so they have to spend their time ensuring that they complete their degrees within this specified period, and appreciate the fact that persons made a lot of sacrifices for them just to be here. Because when they enter college, a good 30 to 40% believe it's freedom. And yes, there's some degree of freedom, but you ought not to lose track of the important thing that you're there for, which is to get a
Mm,
degree.
real.
Yeah, but I think one of the things that stood out to me is that as I've been studying all great investors or business people, a big commonality between a lot of them is that as a kid or at a very young age, they were exposed to business. So it wasn't necessarily, it doesn't have to be like a large business, but a lot of times it's things like a family business or just,
Correct.
a mom or a dad. If you read about Buffett, that happened to him, a lot of, greats. So I think things like that, especially because you're starting from such a young age and you just kept doing it and, progressively, that's what has allowed you, I guess, to reach this point now.
Yeah,
So,
man.
run our company.
And man, it having you having said that now, it opened my mind to a lot of commercial activity that took place during my life, from selling sweets to selling biscuits to selling bun and cheese to when I was in college I operated a business called Type R Us. I could not type one word a minute, but I have three persons typing. One is a
Mm-hmm.
day, One is a minister of government today. One is a prominent attorney, and another is I think he's a professor at Indiana University. I often reminded them that I used to pay their bills.
So they should remember. Yeah, man.
Boy.
Tell me.
I love
Uh,
that. Going
yeah.
back to Atlantic, right? So, you know, you would have. I know you said you liaised with PB and your friend, and you know getting the sale, and then you taking on the challenge of actually leading Atlantic after your time at ARC and so on, and you stepped in as Atlantic CEO. What I wanted to know is, the company already had 30 years of track record and it was undergoing big changes. But what were like the first things you set out to do to transform the business? Like what was the vision?
Well, no disrespect to the previous owners, who I believe did a fantastic job. It's a family company. But we were
Mm,
on Ashland Road at that point in time, and we were distributing from 3 different locations on Ashland Road. So, needless to say, you understand the logistical nightmare. You're loading a truck and you have to reverse down the road, or you have to drive a forklift up the road. It was chaos. We had to offload containers at the side of the road, and staff were just frustrated by just the inability to do things because we're really crammed. The ERP system that we had did not provide us with the kind of first-hand information that we need to make procurement decisions. So we looked at it and we designed a building that would basically have all 3 locations in one of the locations we actually owned. No, added to that, we were really operating on one of the property, about like 87 containers we were basically. So if you want a box of nail, you have to open container number 23 to, that kind of.
mm,
So we I'd initially planned to build a massive structure down there, and then we looked at it and said, no, yes, we can store all what we have, but guess what? There's no room for growth. There's no room for adequate parking for our customers and our suppliers and all our stakeholders. So a property was identified in Marcus Garvey Drive. We were presently at is about 50,000 square feet covered space plus another about acre and a half open space, and we said yes, we're moving.
mm-hmm,
We moved everything from the 3 containers within 1 month. Did not close the business, and set out almost like a supermarket setting. Whenever you have time, you can come down. Your stakeholders, your shareholders, you can see
mm-hmm.
exactly what. And during that time, we changed out our ERP system to what we have now, S2K, which is what is used primarily within the Muslims group. And within 3 months, we sold 82 containers.
Nice.
And use the funds basically to treat with the retrofitting of the building and to deal with all the associated costs of moving. The rent is more, but we sold the property and used the flows from the property to pay down our loan. I mean, our information is public. We did a leverage buyout. We bought the business the 21st of March 2024. We had $1.4 billion in loan. Today, I can tell you we're down to about 580 million. And not long from now, you'll hear some news because we're in negotiations regarding refi. And in terms of cash flow, my cash flow would be significantly improved because we stretch out the moratorium based on the refi. So all of that will be made available to the public at the appropriate time in the appropriate language. But just to say that we are in a significantly more enhanced financial position than 1 year ago, and more so 2 years ago. So we did that, put in place new ERP system, put in place new move to a new location, and start hiring back office staff, because what existed before is just salesmen on the road. So, we changed the structure, hired customer service rep to help the respective salespersons. And despite a rough 2024 in the construction industry, I think we grew by 12.5%. The numbers haven't been finalized as yet, but I can say that we grew last year somewhere in double digits as well. That's the
Okay.
I can say. Despite a very rough year, the economy was flat from about February. There was a dip sometime in and around the election period. October was dead, but the reconstruction effort in that Melissa brought about redounded to our benefit. We had to pivot, because we are a small items company. Yes, we do some plywood, drywall, cement board, pliers, cutlasses, etc. Sorry, I have to always market my company.
Of
But
course.
we
Our
pivoted.
company.
Yes,
Yeah.
sorry. We pivoted hurricane and went straight into zinc and zinc nail
Mm-hmm.
and lumber. So, and we had to do it because we figured that is what the market had demanding, especially in the western parishes, right around to southwest St. Elizabeth and parts of Hanover and St. James. And it has redounded to our benefit. We have said publicly before that we're aiming to have 5% of the lumber market. We estimate that the lumber market is about 3.6 million board feet of lumber per month. Just to help you out, instead of using the technical language, how board feet of lumber is calculated is thickness times the width times the length divided by 12. So for ease of computation, a piece of 2x4, you always hear people talk about 2x4.
Yeah.
So two is the thickness, 4 is the width, and 12. So it's a 2x4x12. The
Uh-huh.
actual board feet for that is 2 times 4 times 12, which is 8 board feet. So I'm saying the market, if you want to use us 2x4x12, you divide 3.6 million by 8, then you figure
Mm-hmm.
how many pieces. First, ease
Mm.
of.
And
So
that's per month.
we're looking at about 5% of that. Our
I
aim
guess
is
I'm trying to quantify like the dollar value. Like, is there a dollar value for the lumber
Fly two
market in
before.
Jamaica?
all right. Well, you're the doctor, so you can quantify it easier than I. A piece of 2x4 now, I'd say 200. So 2x4, 12, 8 times 1600. So you're looking at close to between 4.5 and $5 billion market.
Mm.
Okay. You guys are going
Okay.
for 5%. Okay, I love that. I love that.
No, I mean we are a little baby growing, and we have to ensure that are we do things in such a way for them not to kill the crocodile in the egg. But
I don't think you guys are going to be a baby for much longer.
no, we believe fundamentally in the relationship of commercial convenience. So we import lumber, but we also buy from the major players, the Arc and the Tanquil.
Tanquil. Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, when we're buying overseas, we give them more prices. Gentlemen, if you're able to beat this or to match this price, we buy from you for more than one reason. Number one, if you're buying from overseas, you have to buy in more significant quantities. Number two, buying from overseas exposes us to foreign liabilities.
Mm-hmm.
So if we are getting similar terms, 60 days or 90 days terms, then obviously, even if buying locally costs us 2 or 3% more, then it makes commercial sense. So that's what we have been doing. We have been operating in from the principle of relationship of commercial convenience. So even Fosrich, we are big importers of pipe, but we do buy some from Fosrich, because what we have to ensure, especially in light of the fact that our company is Atlantic Hardware and Plumbing Company Limited, we have to ensure, especially that plumbing, that at all times we are able to have 90% of the big sellers So we do not we could not risk it by getting from a local supplier only.
You
I like
mentioned
that because
Fast
that.
Rich, because
So
I'm
we
thinking
buy,
of even
we buy
like other listed companies like Omni and
mm,
I
we do
don't know who
business.
else.
We do
Oh,
business.
Mm,
okay.
Remember,
okay.
we are traders. A, B, and as such, we believe in the relationship of commercial convenience. So I
Mm,
don't need to sit at their dinner table or vice versa. But once it makes commercial sense, then let's do it.
Hmm.
mm,
Okay.
that's true.
Mm.
Yeah, you said a lot a while ago. Definitely a lot I would like to ask about. I think one of the big things is that you mentioned Hurricane Melissa and how much damage it has caused to the island,
Yeah.
especially the western side of the island. And you guys are gonna, because of a lot of the types of products that you supply, these are the products that are going to be in demand for the next several years.
Mm.
Um, how much capacity do you think that you could handle right now? So say, for example, pre-Melissa, you're at 50% of your capacity because you guys had mentioned you upgraded, bigger warehouse, bigger, space. How much capacity do you think that you could take on? So say you're at 50% pre-Melissa, are you at maybe 80% or are you already at the max right now and you guys are looking to expand?
No, I mean, we're always looking to expand, and that's why I indicated just now the importance of relationship of commercial convenience. So clearly, we have maximum storage that we can have, that we can benefit from. But guess what? If I'm buying from the local traders to sell back to the market, I really don't need to warehouses. Like today, we struck 2 days where we bought, well, our customers in the West want one trailer load of plywood, one of lumber. We call two major suppliers and said to deliver to them on a delivery slip, and then we invoice the customers. So guess what? I didn't have to pick out of my warehouse, number one.
Hmm.
And by virtue of that, all my trucks are out. So I have additional trucks by using my competitors or my suppliers' trucks. So
Ah.
is so so yes, there my our facilities and to a less extent our capacity is stretched for a good way. However, we have found a way to basically extend what we're doing without buying a new property or buying new trucks.
That's actually
Mm.
The
brilliant.
example cited today is perfect, where we got the order, call a supplier, deliver X to Preston Hardware for me, and they delivered X on a delivery slip, and then we invoice Preston Hardware. It's good to go. All parties benefit.
Mm. Nice. Okay. Um, and the other thing I'd like to
I,
ask about.
I don't want you to extract too much of my strategy out in a Matthew.
Oh boy, oh boy. Another thing, you guys spoke about a special projects division,
Yes,
which
Mhm.
my understanding was that you wanted to go after a lot of the hotel or resort developments.
yes. That that project has been stymied somewhat because of the hurricane. But what has happened is that we have become a reliable supplier for roofing material for the retrofitting that they're doing. So the T111 plywood, the drywall, the roofing lumber, the shingles that they use to fix up because of the damages done to the different properties. We have been supplying contractors on these properties directly. So our name is now within the hotel industry as a supplier, as a premier supplier. So that work has been done by virtue of Melissa. So it's way to see the extent of the constructions that will take place. We have already had discussion with two other major players who are contractors who intend to, they're basically waiting on the go ahead to start construction. And they have indicated to us that they are interested in taking some items from us. So the work has started, but it's just to see how quickly the hotel industry rebounds to see to see the extent of the benefit that will accrue to us.
Okay, no, that's so basically right now it's more rebuilding the hotels versus construction of new hotels, but that is still something that you're aiming for.
That's correct.
Okay, and I mean it's a big deal because if you look at the size of the hotel contracts, building a hotel is not cheap. It's millions of US. So I mean a size for like a company Atlantic size, that's even getting one of those contracts is like a very, very big deal.
No, we are not a greedy company. If we get a fraction of, if we get 15%, we're satisfied. As said, we just want to, take our time and have organic growth.
Okay.
Interesting. You said organic growth because a possibility I was thinking of. So my understanding of Atlantic is it's a wholesale distributor, but I'm seeing with the growth trajectory right now, I was wondering if you'd ever consider acquisitions as a way to expand, because right now I know there might have been a lot of businesses, especially in the western side of the island, that have possibly been going through, tough times, and maybe buying out smaller distributors or complementary businesses, or that I'm not sure if that's a thing on the table, or is the focus just strictly organic growth for now?
Very interesting question, and I have to be quite circumspect in responding to you. What I can say at this moment is that we're exploring possibility for both backward and forward integration.
Okay.
Okay, awesome.
I mean, I figured that's all I would get, but thank you for at least answering.
Yeah. Okay. Also, in terms of one of the products that I guess is really high in demand, or maybe not right now, but I think is likely going to increase in demand, is going to be cement, right? CARIB Cement did their upgrade, 30% upgrade. I think it finished 2025. But that was pre-Melissa. And then given the damage and still infrastructure upgrades that were still planned before, and then now needing more recovery and trying to build more resilience and things like that, I think cement is going to be in demand, pretty heavily. Do you think that, based on, I guess, your insight in the industry, do you think that CARIB Cement could actually supply the market? Or do you think that, for example, the government should possibly, maybe, I guess, give a quota or an import license to another importer?
What I will say, because it's quite a political product, it's more political than you can ever imagine. Do I personally believe that CARIB Cement has the capacity? I believe they do. Would I, if I'm minister, provide them with the exclusivity as exists now to a large extent? No. Would I, as minister, grant Atlantic Hardware even a small license? Absolutely. I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think there's I mean, you have to appreciate that the product is so important that without cement you cannot bury the dead.
True.
At ARC, because when I was at ARC, I was one of the architects of putting together the contractual relationship that now exists with CARIB Cement and ARC, which is quite similar to Tankwell and ARC as well, where they operate as distributor for CARIB Cement. We are a very small distributor, and I think I understand the economic arguments presented by CARIB to a large extent. But I think it's very important that the country is secure regarding its cement supplies, because there can be deleterious consequences if CARIB is down for a week or 2 weeks. The entire industry will come to a...
And they have an annual annual maintenance. Yeah.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
So what you're saying is Atlantic would love, you guys would love to import some.
Of course. I mean, if I'm the government, I would perhaps give Atlantic 5,000 tons per So nothing too much to disturb the market,
Mm-hmm.
but enough just in case there's
Mm-hmm.
disruption or there's adequate supply.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll see. When is the annual maintenance normally?
About April, May, I believe.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
that's soon. That is soon. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily see demand going down. One thing I was even thinking about too is even the supply chain, because hurricane aside, even the past few years, just globally, we've seen a lot of supply chain shocks and disruptions, price
Wars.
spikes, yeah, for commodities, shipping delays that
Yeah.
we've seen. And for a business like Atlantic, I just wonder how you manage to keep your warehouses stocked.
Well, unfortunately, there are some products that we have to carry more than. We try to go about 4 months with some. Anything from the Far East, we try and go 4 months.
Mm,
As well, you said it. That there are several issues, geopolitical. Last year, because of the rainfall issues in the Panama Canal,
canal.
there was a traffic jam in the canal, whereby literal traffic jam, where you're looking at hundreds of ships just lined up trying to come across the canal. So all of those issues we took in consideration, and we increased our inventory deliberately so that in case you have those supply shocks, then we're able to supply at least 90% of our top 50 items consistently.
Mm,
So
yeah,
Mm.
not all
very smart.
items, obviously, 'cause we do roughly 2,500 items, but we pick the top 50 items and we try and ensure that we have those quantities. I mean, we buy white cement out of Egypt, and you know what was happening with the war around that side, and as a result of that, we had delays up to 2-3 months.
Okay. Yeah. Are there
Okay.
any products that you're looking to um, either expand in or increase inventory of, especially now in this time?
No, we'd have done some homework, and based on the suggestion from the team, we would have increased those items in terms of order quantities. So, to a large extent, we're reasonably covered. What we have to take in consideration, or what we have been taking consideration, is the demand post the hurricane, to
Mm-hmm.
re-examine where we're at, if the numbers actually make sense, is it too much, is it too little, and then make calculated guesses based on the information that the algorithm provides us with.
Mm.
Okay.
Okay. One of the things that you spoke about before that really, I guess, helped to reshape Atlantic, you spoke about the ERP system, right? I
Yeah,
think that stands for Enterprise Resource Planning System.
correct.
Could you shed some more light on exactly what that system is in terms of just from a layman's perspective? Because my understanding is it's basically just it's a way to automate your inventory management. So it's like, oh, this product is here, you have this amount of lumber, and it helps to reduce stockouts.
Exactly, but I don't know what else to say. You have said it best. So that's it. And there's a financial aspect of it as well, that it provides the financial statements, but the information is fed right into the system. So at any point in time, you can identify a product, if it's out of stock, how many stock you need to buy, which supplier you need to buy it from. So that information, that's what the system provides us with. You almost could write an essay from the information that is generated out of the system. So instead of persons constantly counting, or you send somebody in the warehouse, you look in the system.
Mm,
Okay. Awesome.
So the
Awesome.
efficacy and efficiency are significantly improved. It's not where we want it to be as yet, but we're pleased with the advances that we've made over the last 18 months.
So you guys aren't even as okay. How much more efficient do you think you can get?
No, I want to be in Switzerland, and to look at my inventory, literally look at it. So we
mm-hmm.
have back office thing has to be sorted out. So it's no longer. So it's just camera alone is an entire sophisticated system I want. Remember, up to now we have put in place a system where if you're in Tokyo and you want to buy some goods for your grandmother in Katadope or Montpellier in St. James or in the hills of Alexandria in St. Anne, you want to be able to go onto our website and place your order, pay your money, and we arrange delivery. We're not there yet. That's phase 2 because we have to ensure that phase 1 is optimal. So there's still a way to go.
So you guys would do straight to the consumer, you're saying? Like, oh, you could log on.
But we have, what would happen is that we would have to have not a MOQ, not a minimum order quantity, but a minimum order value. So MOV, because for it to make commercial sense, we're not going to send our truck into Katadope to deliver 2 cutlasses.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
nice.
get that.
Okay, I see the vision. I have a bit of a weird question. So my understand, I don't understand the construction industry as much as you do, but I know that, okay, because of the hurricane, there's going to be an increase in demand on products. And from my understanding is that there's going to be almost stages. So there's certain products that right after were in very, very high demand. And then as you progressively, I guess build out certain other products are going to be in progressively more demand and such. So I'm, I guess, trying to, relate that to the market. Because there are certain companies, for example, they sell PVCs, they sell paint.
Yes, so we're not in paint, we're not in tiles, but once you reach the finishing, we're right there with you because we're one of the largest distributors of toilets and faucets and the associated plumbing, whether the hot water plumbing, which is the CPVC, or that's the regular plumbing. We do all of those items. We do tile strips that goes along with the tiles. So right along the construction trade, we're right there.
Okay.
So once you're finished with the steel, you're finished with the lumber, you're finished with the plywood, you're through with the cement. Then comes to the toilets, the kitchen drain, all of those we have. So we're right. Them can't get rid of it. We're right there, sir.
Okay.
And do you guys have, like, for example, a number one product? Like, oh, this product makes up 10% of our revenues or something like that?
I would say that we have a list of about 25 items that I think would contribute close to about 45% of our revenues. And those are the big ticket items: the lumber, the zinc sheeting, the lumber, zinc, the plywood, the white cement, the steel doors. We are major distributors of doors, wooden door and steel door. So those items, and then you add things like the white cement, white lime. White lime is what they use to mark the road with and football field with. Yeah, those items, the hardboard in Jamaica and the countryside, they call it Celotex. That's the thing that they use in the roofs or in the desk drawers or the drawers. That's a brown looking thing that's at the bottom.
The base, yeah.
Right
Okay.
there. So all of those items, and the different plumbing, there are some major seller 1/2 inch. These items are top 25 items, makes our top 25 items. Then there are things, cutlasses, files, who. So even the agricultural sector, we are there as well, and we'll soon make an announcement regarding the agricultural sector. Again, it's I can't say because we have to abide by the stock exchange rules and advise them, but we're looking to engage that industry in a more meaningful way. Because right now we sell the forks, we sell the hoe, we sell machetes, we sell files, we sell the garden hoses. So it's just deeper penetration. As I said to you, that we are looking at both forward and backward integration.
All right. That's interesting. You said something because you're basically saying almost half of your revenues comes from those 25 products. But then I think you mentioned things like lumber and plywood, but then didn't you mention that I think those are some of the ones that you more recently got into?
Added, yeah.
Yes, so you have some shift. Some shift took place over the last 6 to 8 months, but our core products, when you X out the lumber and you X out the zinc sheeting, basically all that items were there before.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is that you just started selling lumber and zinc within the last year, and it's
Yeah,
already a very significant portion of your revenues.
correct. Because it was quite deliberate what we did because we have to ensure we place ourselves in our position to pivot. So, do we go in tiles? Do we go in? No, we need more items at the beginning. So, when you go into a hotel, you can't tell a hotel about um, PVC or pipes. They're not ready for that. They want to hear about lumber, steel, ply, cement. So
Mm-hmm.
now we're in the lumber business. We do some cement distribution already and ply. I mean, we trade steel. Steel is not item that we carry in our inventory. So then we have the door is open for us.
Mm.
Makes
It makes
sense.
so
So
much sense too. 'Cause if you think about it with your special projects division, if you go to a hotel and then they're like, "Hey, we have a contract. It's worth we want 5 million US worth of these goods,"
mhm.
but then you can only supply 40% of the goods versus someone else who could do
All right,
80%.
they consider a joker.
Yeah, so you guys had to do that to then be able to do the special projects division, to that degree.
Yes.
And
And I
all
think
I
the
would say is
timing is
that
also good too, based
Hmm.
on, you know, uh, the hurricane and so on, and the need for, because I've been seeing even articles on us running short on zinc maybe a couple months ago, and lumber, and it's just, I
That's a
guess,
the zinc issue was a really massive issue because the two primary producers, Tankwell and Ark, is about 90% of the market. And the extent of the damages that were done, I don't think any of the two companies were prepared. So Zinc, the machine, clearly had issues because naturally the machines are running nonstop. But
yeah.
I think Zinc matter should be settled somewhat by the middle of February, based on the information that we have received from both companies.
all
Okay.
right, all right.
So it's not like I have spies inside there, but I speak to the leadership in these companies because every 3 months the Bank of Jamaica and the PSOJ has a summit, so to speak, where the sector leaders speak. So the agriculture people speak, the BPO people speak. I speak on behalf of the construction industry, so I have to gather the information from all sides, the contractors, the developers, the distributors, and in some instances, the final consumers.
Okay. Okay. And I mean,
All
hey,
right.
the business clearly has been booming, and we even looked at the stock price, and
Yeah.
it listed
To say,
at
wait, we should
$1.
point out that he did know his stock price. He
Oh
did know his
yes,
stock price. Yes.
yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. And I mean, you also are invested in the company, Denal. So it's good to know your stock price as well. But
But
yeah, listing at $1, an impressive feat, hitting what, doubling in less than a year. Not many
yes,
companies can say that.
we listed April 3rd or 4th last year. But
Mhm.
yeah, I realized because more people have been telling me hi these days than I know.
I hope they're buying you drinks.
Yeah, I consider myself a very sociable person, but I'm getting little more highs than normal these days. So yeah, but when and this is the interesting thing about the market. I think last year our stock price went down as far as 85 cents without us publishing any information, which I found extremely strange. But I
Mhm.
guess it's a market. I think the investing community have now realized that we're a very solid company. I think we have one of the best board of directors in the entire market. I don't think there are three boards with the professional and academic qualification than our board.
Mm.
Um,
Strong indeed.
so So we have a very solid corporate governance strategy as well, and led by some solid persons. So it's only a matter of time. So people are now seeing that, listen, me, we have de-risked the business significantly. Not de-risk, but de-risk significantly, because within 24 months from you, basically you're cutting your debt down almost 60%. It's no ordinary feat in the Jamaican
Yeah.
market. And yet still we have grown the business in excess of 10% for each year since, which suggests that in a market that was declining.
Yeah.
So
That's so true. It's
I believe
impressive.
the team has been doing a reasonably good job.
Yeah. I remember Preston and I did a stock review when the prospectus came out. So we normally have a series on our show called Tickers, where we go through the actual stock tickers and we
Mhm.
just analyze certain companies and so on. And one was Atlantic when the prospectus came out. And we made our Atlantic video. We liked it. And I remember seeing some of the comments. And the comments were, I see why the stock traded lower. The comments were a bit negative. Like some of them even were like, they didn't like the fact that they were using the IPO money to pay down debt. And I think it's just the market. I think a lot of people have gotten used to IPOs doing something like really quote unquote sexy, like acquiring a business or something like that. So when they see paying down debt, it doesn't look as good. But look at what it means now in terms of profitability for the company, and being able to go to, if you needed more cash or so on, you can go to a bank and say, hey, I want a loan now. I'm not like over levered or anything like that. So it frees up a lot for the company. And
They're literally chasing us now to borrow money from them. Do you want to finance your receivables? Do you want to finance that? They're chasing us.
yes, man, that's how it should be.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
So I mean, the
we're
astute investors are definitely happy. Definitely happy with your performance.
yes. And I think I would want to believe that we made a little more profit than last year.
Mm.
All right.
Okay.
I think
I guess
that's
we shall see. Yes.
that I was told.
Okay. Haven't really seen anything yet. It's word of
Well,
mouth.
well, be patient. Within the next 14 days, you will see an interim report.
Ah.
yeah.
When it's published, I'll come back if you want to just discuss the report, because I want those naysayers to come on board and anti-carrier employment company limit.
All right, we will hold you to that.
Yes, man. Investors
We
love
will.
that, the market loves that. Like CEOs that
Yeah.
really and truly speak about, because we don't have many CEOs that, come on shows or talk about the company like that. You only see them once a year at AGMs. And so it's really a blessing to see that kind of communication to investors, because it's a huge community, and a huge community of prospective investors too that are looking to get into the market, but they don't see much activity and so on. So kudos to you for coming here on the show. Yes, man, that's big. Preston, any more questions for Deanall?
I gave him too much information.
Okay.
No,
Well, I have one last question. One last
Yeah.
question that we'd like to ask all our guests on the show. It's not more on a personal note, because I know you do check the market, even if it's just for your own stock. But outside of Atlantic, are there any other companies, even before you became CEO of Atlantic, are there any other companies that you like on the market? Doesn't mean you own them or anything, but any stocks that you like on the market, and why?
The difficulty with answering that question, and forgive me for going the legal route, as a publicly traded company, I think it would be inappropriate for me to comment as it relates to other publicly traded company. What I would say, however, is that look at the national economy and examine the companies from a perspective that if the government intends to put in say $20-30 billion in the economy, to have some form of flip, and is directed primarily in reconstruction efforts, then what companies more than likely will benefit directly or indirectly from those funds?
Drops mic.
Drops mic. You guys heard it here first. Limitless exclusive. Well,
Preston,
thank you, Miss.
Matthew,
You
you
know,
like that? Reasonable answer, right?
Perfect.
couldn't say it better myself. Indeed. Guys, if you love this episode, please drop a like and subscribe, right? Share it with a friend. Deanall Barnes, thank you so much. CEO of Atlantic Hardware and Plumbing Company Limited. Really appreciate you for coming on the show. And yeah, anything you want to leave with the limit breakers, the investors out there?
Yes, indeed. Stocks to a large extent are long-term investments. So when you're looking at a company to invest in, you look at the shareholder, the directors, you look at the management of the company and ask yourself the question, do they have the requisite experience to guide this company? Then you dig deeper into what are the strategic plans, what do they intend to do? Is it possible there are the different plans that they have? So I am firm in my mind that the Atlantic Hardware and Plumbing Company Limited, we have basically opened more books to the public. We have received several financing. I mean, in terms of just goods, companies all over the world want to know, give us goods because we're a listed company. It means a lot to them because they can just access our information on the JC website. They no longer need us to send them their financial. It speaks of confidence. I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying that when you're investing, you examine all the different things. The numbers are important, but you want persons of impeccable character to lead, to be part of the leadership or be the leadership in those companies. And everywhere that most of my directors have been, they have shown that they are persons of immense character and scruples, just like yours truly. So look at Atlantic. Go again if you didn't have a chance. Look at our prospectus. Look at where we started, and in 2 weeks, look at where we are, and then you make your determination. Is it a company that I'd want to grow with? And I'm absolutely confident that you will definitely pick in the yes corner. Thank you very much, and wishing every single one a spiritually and a financially successful year.
Hey, that's
Awesome.
it, guys. Stay limitless.
Peace.